Chapter 13. The Evicted Queen. The weeks following the fairy inaugural ball turned out to be quite enjoyable for Alex. She attended the fairy council meetings every day. She rode Cornelius on her daily trips around the kingdom to see who needed the helping hand of a fairy, and then she spent the evenings going on long walks with Brooke through the woods. She couldn't decide which part of her day she liked best, except on days when their walks ended with a goodnight kiss. Then the walk was definitely her favorite part. After weeks of agonizing over the ball and days spent worrying about Rook, Alex was so happy she could finally enjoy herself again. It had been so long since she was content about anything she had almost forgotten what relief felt like. She'd been so occupied she hadn't even noticed to ask Connor how his trip to Germany was. However, as enjoyable as her carefree days were, she knew they were most likely limited, and one afternoon Alex received a letter from Red that proved just that. Dearest Alex, congratulations on graduating from fairy school or whatever it was you recently accomplished. I am very proud of you. I'm positive you'll be a wonderful addition to the League of Fairies or whatever it is you're part of now. I'm writing to you because I need a favor. That dreadful Peepoon has struck again. She convinced the House of Progress to organize a debate between us before the polls open tomorrow afternoon. Isn't that the most barbaric thing you ever heard of? What kind of kingdom wants to watch their ruler defend herself against a series of vicious personal attacks on her character? Do the words nobility and grace not go hand in hand anymore? Anyway, I was wondering if you weren't too busy with fairy court, if you wouldn't mind attending the debates in my support. Having a fairy publicly on my side would do a lot for my image. And when the election results come in tomorrow evening and Little Bo Peep loses, you can turn her into a pumpkin and we can take turns smashing her with a sledgehammer. Warmest wishes, Her Majesty Queen Red Riding Hood, the Red Riding Hood Kingdom. P.S. Charlie says hello. He's been guiding me through all of this campaign ridiculousness. I convinced the House of Progress to let him moderate the debate. He hopes to see you too. The letter had been delivered personally by one of Red's messengers, and he looked very tired after traveling all night to deliver it. Please tell Queen Red I'll be there, Alex sighed. Later that evening, Alex told Rook about the letter while they were on their walk. Are you going to tell Red what we saw in Little Bo's barn? Rook asked her. No, I don't think I will, Alex said. I can't fault Little Bo for not having noble intentions, when Red doesn't exactly have the noblest intentions either. Does that mean I won't be seeing you for our walk tomorrow? Rook asked, making the saddest puppy eyes at her. Probably not, Alex said. But I'll see you the day after. That's all right. My father and I are pulling weeds tomorrow, and that usually takes up the majority of the day. Rook let out a pitiful laugh. What's so funny, Alex said. I just compared our days in my head, Rook said. You're going to be part of an election that will change the kingdom's future and pulling weeds. We all do our part, Alex teased. But if it's any consolation, Red's problems are a lot like weeds. No matter how many times you pull them, they just keep coming back. The following afternoon, Alex rode Cornelius into Red Riding Hood Kingdom and arrived in town just as the debate was about to begin. From a distance, it looked like the entire kingdom had been painted red, but when Alex got closer, she realized it wasn't paint. The town was covered red. Every shop, home, and tree was covered in Red's campaign posters. The majority of them said vote for Queen Red and had a sketch of Red on them. The others were a bit catchier and said, keep the king fed, vote for Queen Red, or a kingdom this great must be doing something right, vote for Queen Red. Others completely slandered Little Bo and said, don't be a creep, don't vote for Peep. Or more subtly, Peep loses sheep. Alex tried to find posters in Little Bo's favor, but couldn't see any. She clearly wasn't campaigning as hard as Red, or perhaps all her posters had been covered by Red's. Park in the center of the kingdom was lined with voting booths. 2 podiums were set up in the House of Progress's front steps, where most of the kingdom had gathered on the ground below. The representatives were seated at the bottom of the steps, privileged to have front row seats of the debate. Alex let Cornelius graze in the park and met Froggy at the steps. He paced around nervously, holding a stack of cards in his hands. "Is she ready for this?" Alex asked him. "As ready as she can be. I've been coaching her all week." "I'm sure you're an amazing teacher," Alex said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "I really love Red, and I think she's an amazing queen in her own way," he said. "Her confidence is contagious, and it's good for the kingdom. Getting others to see it that way is the challenge." Queen Red and Little Bo emerged from inside the House of Progress and were greeted by warm applause, and they walked down the steps to their respective podiums. Red moved a little faster than Little Bo and walked in front of her, taking all the applause for herself. Alex had to see what the representatives, and Froggy addressed the crowd. "Hello, Hoodians, and welcome to the first electoral debate in the history of the Red Riding Hood Kingdom," Froggy said. "Our candidates will each give a chance to express why they feel deserving of your votes and then we will conclude the debate with questions submitted by citizens from around the kingdom. Let's begin." Froggy took his position on the lower steps below the podiums, and the debate began. Queen Red was the first to try to persuade the kingdom to vote her. "Fellow Hoodians," she declared, "this was such a nice ring to it, don't you think? What would you call if Little Bo Peep sits on the throne? The Peepers? I mean, you would dislike that as much as I would dislike it. Now, I know my opponent is going to spend the next few minutes telling you all that she understands you and she's one of you and blah, blah, blah. And you know what? She's right. The citizens were shocked to hear Red take this approach. Red was afraid where she was taking this. Little Bo Peep is just like you, and I couldn't be more different than you," Red continued. "But that's how you like your queen. You want your queen to represent you, not be one of you. That's why I was elected queen when I was a little girl. Because of a young, innocent victim, I symbolize you. And now that our kingdom has become the prosperous nation it is today, I symbolize that. When other kingdoms think about the Red Riding Hood Kingdom, do you want them thinking about a leader who carries around a staff and probably does their own cooking and cleaning? No! You want them thinking of a rich and beautiful and fearless queen, because that is what the Red Riding Hood Kingdom is. Thank you." Red finished her speech and struck a pose with her hands in the air. Her citizens had been trained well enough by now to know that they were supposed to applaud whenever she did this. Little Bo cleared her throat. It was her turn to convince the citizens to vote for her. "The reason I didn't put campaign posters up in the same reason, I won't bore you with a long speech now. It's a waste of time," Little Bo said. "Queen Red may waste your time and your resources, but I will not." A quiet whisper broke out through the crowd. Red was appalled by Little Bo's response. She kept looking to the crowd, expecting someone to say Little Bo was breaking the rules. Little Bo stayed as calm and collected as ever. She definitely wasn't the emotional mess Alex had seen in the barn a few weeks earlier. Red was desperate to get the crowd back on her side. "May I just remind everyone that when I was younger and surviving horrendous attacks by the wild creatures, is high and mighty over there couldn't even keep track of her own sheep," Red said. "And then her own sheep felt so sorry they came back, wagging their tails behind them, so she wouldn't feel so pathetic. And now this woman wants to be queen?" The spectators hooted and hollered at Red's feisty response. The debate was getting interesting. Froggy slapped his hand against his forehead. Alex could tell he had tried cautioning her against having outbursts like this. For the Queen's information, I lost my flock of sheep one time. It was a traumatic experience that inspired me single-handedly to turn my family's farm into the most productive in the kingdom, Little Bo stated. We are now the #1 wool-producing business in the world, and thanks to the flawless continuing system I invented, my farm has never lost a sheep since. Brett greeted this response with an impressive eye roll. Well, if traumatic experience makes someone a bigger person, I'm surprised I even fit through the doors of my own castle, she said. I was inside the stomach of the big bad wolf inside him. Surely that deserves a little more credit than just being absent-minded. You walk into that forest wearing a bright red cape and carrying a basket of freshly baked goods, Little Bo interrupted. You weren't asking to be attacked by a wolf, and then we elected you queen. The fish jumped in the boat with a hook in his mouth. We elect him king? A sprinkling of people in the crowd grunted their protest, feeling Little Bo was insulting their judgment now. Red quickly milked this all for all it was worth. Are you telling the Hoodian people here today that they were wrong to elect me queen, Red asked. Little Bo's eyes darted around the crowd, who grew more insulted by the second. It was her turn to get them back on her side. What I'm trying to say is, Queen Red may have been a symbol at one point, but the big bad wolves are gone now, Little Bo said. The times have changed, and so should the leader of this kingdom. The kingdom may have needed a symbol then, but we need a ruler now. A hush fell over the crowd. The citizens started to look at Little Bo differently now, not just as someone brave enough to challenge the queen, but as a true leader. Let's read some of the questions, Froggy said. We'll start with Queen Red, and then Little Bo will follow. The first question is, how will you help the farmers whose crops freeze in the winter? Red perked up like she knew the perfect answer. Not only would I supply farmers with coats, I would supply their crops with coats as well, she said happily. The entire crowd squinted at her. Was she serious? I would supply the farmers with mulch to give their crops a better chance of withstanding the cold, as well as barrels of heated water to keep the crops from freezing over, Little Bo said. The citizens nodded to one another. They liked her answer better. Froggy moved on to the next answer. Now Little Bo will answer first, followed by Queen Red, he prefaced. How will you make a school a more meaningful experience for children in our kingdom? Little Bo was prepared for an answer. You can only learn so much in a classroom, she said. I would invite the children to my farm to help them visit the shops in the town so they can experience different workplaces before choosing a field to go into. And it would give our poor, overworked teachers a rest once in a while. This answer was welcomed with a soft round of applause from the teachers in the crowd. Red thought about her answer before giving it. Actually, I like her answer, she said with a confident nod. Yes, I would do the same. Alex sighed. She didn't think this was going to end well for her friend. Next question, Froggy said, and flipped to the next card. Queen Red will answer first. What is your take on national security? Red placed her index finger over her mouth while she formed an answer. Alex crossed her fingers, hoping she would deliver an answer the citizens could get behind. I like it, was all Red said, and a small smile grew on her face. Alex covered her eyes. It was like watching a carriage wreck. A few citizens even laughed at Red. Little Bo waited a moment before answering the question herself, letting Red's embarrassment marinate. I believe the key to the national security is having a strong army, Little Bo said. No kingdom has ever experienced a downfall because it was too strong. The Hoodian citizens started a round of healthy applause for Little Bo. Bo peep, Bo peep, Bo peep, the crowd chanted. Bo peep, Bo peep. Red looked sadly over her citizens. She didn't understand where she had gone wrong. Froggy immediately concluded the debate before it got worse for her. We like to think you all for joining us in this debate," Froggy said. "Please cast your votes in one of the many voting booths in the park." While the citizens voted for a queen, Alex and Froggy kept Red company in the library of her castle. They were all pins and needles waiting to hear the results of the election. Alex and Froggy sat in large comfy chairs by the fireplace, but Red had been pacing for hours since they returned from the debate. Claudius watched her sadly from a corner of the room, looking as if he wished there was something he could do. "Little Bo is a pain in the shepherd dress," Red shouted, loud enough for the whole castle to hear. "She'd never be half the queen I am. Would she have been chased by a pack of wolves and lived to tell the tale? No. Would she have got into a flying ship and sailed around the world trying to save it? No. Could she have chopped down a beanstalk to save her citizens from being devoured by a giant man-eating cat? No. Would she have refused to surrender her kingdom to the enchantress? No. Does anyone except me remember the things I've done for this country?" "Maybe they do, darling," Froggy said. "You have to be patient to hear what the results are. Don't declare your defeat yet." "Your people might have more faith in you than you have in them," Alex said. "Just believe in them as much as they always believed in you." This comforted Red a little bit, and the distance of her facing shortened. There was a knock on the door, and the third little pig entered the room. Froggy and Alex stood from their seats, and Red stopped pacing altogether. "Good evening, Your Majesty," he said. "Have the votes been counted?" Froggy asked. "Yes, they have," the little pig said. The room grew uncomfortably tense, and Red didn't know what else to do but laugh. "Good," she said, pretending it wasn't a big deal. "Has all the election business finally been settled, then? Can we let Little Peep know that I'm here to stay?" The third little pig hesitated to respond, and Alex and Froggy knew it had gone in her favor. Red was about to hear the worst news in her life. "Actually, Little Bo Peep has been elected the new queen," the pig said. Red fell into the closest seat and clutched her chest. Her heart was just broken into a million pieces. "I'm sorry," she said, trying to fight the tears from her eyes. "Can you repeat that?" "Little Bo Peep has been elected new queen, ma'am," the pig said again. Froggy had a seat next to Red and held her hand tightly. Alex placed a hand on her friend's shoulder. Claudius came and sat by her feet. Even though Red had heard the news twice, she still had a hard time comprehending it. "This is impossible," Red said, shaking her head. "This is my kingdom. It has my name, after all." "Actually, ma'am, the kingdom's going to be renamed," the pig told her regretfully. And if she had heard enough bad news already. "To what?" Alex asked. "The Bo Peep Republic." Red forced a laugh again. "Oh, that's a ridiculous name," she said, desperately needing to make light of the situation for her own good. "When does Little Bo officially take over?" Froggy asked. "In 1 week," Pig said. "She's kindly asked that Red Riding Hood have all of her belongings out of the castle by then." Even Red couldn't hold a stoic face after hearing this. She burst into tears and buried her face in Froggy's shoulder. "I'll give you a moment to yourselves," the pig said, and left the room. Sometimes it was difficult to be around Red when she was happy, but Alex had never expected it would be so painful to watch her be so miserable. Red sobbed for the rest of the evening. Her spirit had been broken, and Alex was afraid it might never be salvaged. "I'm the queen," she cried into Froggy's head. "I'm the queen. I'm the queen." 7 days, 1,000 dresses, 800 pairs of shoes, 500 paintings, 28 statues, and 1 wolf later, the entire castle had been cleared of any trace of Red Riding Hood. She spent her last moments in the castle alone, in her empty bedroom, looking at the bare walls she had once called home. She was so depressed, all she wore was a simple red dress and a matching overcoat. There was a soft knock on the door, and Froggy peeked inside. "All the carriages are loaded, darling," she said. "It's time to go." "All right, then," Red said, dabbing her eyes with a with a handkerchief, she stood up and somberly left the room. She shut the door behind her, and not only to her own bedroom, but to her life as queen. Froggy gave her his arm and escorted her down the grand staircase and through the castle. All the servants lined the walls as she passed. They respectfully bowed for her one final time. Red and Froggy walked outside, where a parade of 12 carriages jam-packed with Red's belongings was waiting for them. The carriages were very plain wooden, much different from the luxurious ones Red used to travel in. Froggy and Claudius climbed to the first carriage and waited for Red. She looked up at the castle and admired the towers and windows she had personally designed. She thought about the happy and not so happy memories she had lived through inside and said goodbye to it all. The parade of carriages left the Red Riding Hood Kingdom and traveled to the Fairy Kingdom to the Fairy Palace. Alex invited Red to stay with her for a few days while she figured out what the next step in her life would be. Alex had to magically shrink Red's belongings so she could place them in a tiny cupboard. Otherwise, they would never have fit in the palace. Alex took Red, Froggy, and Claudius up to the grand balcony in the fairy palace, hoping the remarkable view might cheer Red up. I suppose I took things for granted, Red said. She hadn't looked at the view once. Her eyes cast down the floor. Just like I expected the sky to always be blue. I expected to always be queen. We have to take some things for granted every now and then, Alex told her friend. Otherwise, we would live life afraid of losing everything. Claudius whimpered onto the floor at their feet. Even he missed the castle. Froggy had been quiet since they arrived and hadn't been acting himself. He looked like he was getting sick, but didn't have any symptoms yet. Are you feeling all right, Froggy? Alex asked him. I'll be just fine, he said. I'm a tad dizzy, that's all. I think the week is catching up to me. He walked a little ways away from them, clutching the balcony tightly as he went, but Alex didn't press the matter. She tried to think of something to talk about that would take Red's mind off her troubles. At least while you're here, I can introduce you to Rook, Alex told her. Red nodded and then quickly looked confused. Sorry, who? Red asked. Alex sighed. Red had been through such a ringer. She couldn't fault her not remembering his name. Esmeralda suddenly rushed to the balcony and went straight to Alex. Alex, you need to come with me, she said in a serious tone. Why? What's wrong? Alex asked. It's your grandmother, Esmeralda said. She's sick. Alex didn't know what to say to this. As far as she knew, her grandmother had never been sick in her entire life. Could fairy godmothers even get sick? A croaking sound unexpectedly came from the end of the balcony and interrupted her train of thought. Would this be by chance having anything to do with my current situation? Froggy asked. They all turned to him by the railing, and Red screamed. Without warning or reason, Froggy had transformed back to a frog. Alright, that is the end of chapter 13. Thank you so much for listening. Don't forget to subscribe if you want to hear more from the Land of Stories at Grimm Warning and more books in the future. Also, if you want to give me any good recommendations for me to read later on, don't forget to comment below on those good recommendations. But overall, thank you so much for listening, and I hope you have a wonderful day.